are talking about this Sylvester Stallone movie, BACKTRACE. This one directed by Brian A. Miller. They should have called it Backwash. That would have been a better title for this one. So this one is about a robbery that we see kind of like the aftermath at the beginning of the movie. And there's a group of kind of thieves. Matthew Modine is one of these thieves, and they have a confrontation with a sort of partner within this kind of like people who have agreed to rob this particular bank. And it all goes south, and pretty much all the robbers are killed, aside from Matthew Modine, who managed to get away, but he's shot in the head. And then we cut to 7 years later, and we learn that he's lost his memory. And he's broken out of this kind of psychiatric hospital to try and uncover the whereabouts of this kind of hidden money that he had hid 7 years ago, and he's pursued by the police, led by Sylvester Stallone's detective, and the FBI, and potentially a mysterious party who may have been involved within the kind of the robbery itself. So all of this time, Matthew Modine can't remember what's happened. He's lost his memory. He's got amnesia. So he's kind of trying to kind of piece together fragments of what's gone on to try and retrace his steps. So that's your basic plot synopsis here. So this is one of those examples of where we have Sylvester Stallone sort of splashed on the kind of the cover, and his name in the credits, when he's really only a very minor part in this story. And throughout the movie, he'll crop up in a couple of kind of 30-second minute scenes that take place in an office or something, and at the end he shows up for the obligatory action sort of sequence. But outside of that, the real kind of main character here is actually Matthew Modine. So let's discuss what works with the movie first of all. So there is a kind of a kind of good effect here, where I kind of like Matthew Modine's kind of where he's having these kind of painful kind of relapses into kind of remembering stuff. I think it's very effective. It kind of almost gets across that he's really kind of trying to kind of like have these memories, but it's really hurting. I thought that was a pretty good effect here. I actually thought Matthew Modine was actually fairly good in this role. I have to say, he's probably the best thing in it, if I'm honest. And he has an interesting kind of relationship with these people who have kind of broke him out of this kind of psychiatric ward. Although I have some questions with that. But I quite like the reveal of that, although it doesn't make a lot of sense. There's a fair amount of kind of sort of action sequences within this movie. They're all kind of low rent ones. But to be honest with you, this movie is a crushing disappointment, as if it was any surprise. I mean, these kind of like, we see it with Bruce Willis at the time, these kind of straight to DVD action movies, and they just kind of have a big star, and maybe who's little past it now, in a few scenes to kind of splash it across the cover, like I've said. So what doesn't work? Well, I've got to be honest with you, this feels a lot like a TV show. It feels like an episode of some type of procedural cop drama. The interesting thing here is that Sylvester Stallone is meant to be a detective, but you really don't see him doing any detective work. It's just him kind of like turning up at the end, having an obligatory action scene, and then when he's kind of like the pennies finally dropped. We don't really ever see him do any type of police work. This movie is just full of plot holes, really. There's a reveal that is kind of made about the people who break out Matthew Modine's character near the third act, and we're just like, come on, how did no one know this? I mean, just kind of like, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that was a thing. This movie is just full of kind of ridiculous kind of situations. We have this kind of like, Sylvester Stallone wants kind of the final action sequence, so to speak. And we have a group of kind of like armoured individuals, all with machine guns. Stallone steps out of his car all on his own without any kind of like backup or anything like that. We don't see him call for any type of backup. He's not wearing a kind of like vest. He's got a handgun, and of course he's like he's managed to dodge every bullet, etc. It's just very, very kind of silly. Our kind of lead antagonist is really kind of like hamming it up. And like I've said, I mean, without kind of giving it away, there's just crappy writing here. I mean, when you think about the relationship when it's revealed about who these kind of like these people are who have broken Matthew Modine's character out of prison, it just doesn't make any sense, because it would be fairly easy to find out if you were, you know, anyone else involved in it. It's just ridiculous movie, to be honest with you. Like I said, I mean, it's for a complete brain turn off. It's somewhat distracting. I think the, you know, if you have really kind of low expectations and you just want a kind of a time waster action film that feels like a TV episode, it loves a bit of shaky cam. It loves kind of the overexposed lens flares. You know, it's just an all-round, somewhat kind of disappointing effort. There's no real kind of high bar here. And to be honest with you, this storytelling narrative doesn't make a lot of sense in a lot of ways, even right at the beginning. I mean, when we see kind of like the 7 years later, you know, it doesn't kind of give you the status quo as what's happening. We just sort of see Matthew Modine in a psychiatric hospital, but we don't know that he's got captured. We don't know what the situation is. You just have to kind of you're expected to kind of know that and stuff like that, and it's just poor. It's very, very lazy storytelling. So there is I mean, it's not a complete write-off. There are a couple of, you know, interesting character moments here and there. I think, you know, reading IMDb and some of the kind of the reviews on there, I think, you know, it's not a 1 out of 10 movie, but it's disappointing. I don't think it's any type of quality here. It's a very, very standard straight to DVD flick that, if you know, that people should be embarrassed about, really, that it's going to be completely forgotten about. I'll give this one a 4 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.